Coming up on this episode of Outlook TV, Vancouver queer history documentary.
Gary Beals' new album, Bleed My Truth.
Two-spirit and queer artists at the Transform Festival. And much, much more. Hello and welcome to Outlook TV. I'm Rebecca Wyman.
And I'm Robert Mackay. And Kalamazoo, you're watching the Queer Magazine news show that brings you the stories that matter the most from coast to where?
Oh, the other coast. And the other coast. We're going to kick it off in Vancouver tonight with, yet another festival that's had to go virtual.
The Transform Festival?
That's the one.
Oh, nothing but a large amount of makeup and a Vaseline lens makes me look transformed. But this festival brought the Indigenous and two-spirited people together in a new virtual format.
Welcome back to Outlook TV. My name is Leroy Wan, and today we're here at the Transform Cabaret Festival to see the potentials of collaboration on the unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam peoples.
I would say, as a queer person, as an Indigenous person, it is a festival that I needed when I was a young person. Transform Cabaret Festival really came out of a desire to further the conversations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, to recognize that these communities don't always come together and share space and share conversation in an ongoing way, and that we wanted to create a space where that was possible all the time. We recognize also that the way that our communities work are sometimes siloed, both in terms of artists, artistic communities, audiences, but also in terms of disciplines. Like, you don't often have a musician who's collaborating with a circus artist or a dancer or burlesque or all these things where it's like we all have so much in common. We all have so much to gain from one another and to be inspired by. And so we felt like this was the perfect avenue through the form of cabaret to bring all those different disciplines together and communities together and create bold, exceptional, and really politically charged artworks.
Virgo Nation as our group, and all of us are very different in our styles of how we like to tell our stories.
We weren't being censored whatsoever. I mean, I sang a song about colonizers to Britney Spears' Womanizer, and there was no no, maybe don't do that for certain audience members.
It's really great to see Transform Festival, being an arts festival, actually giving people of color the option and the opportunity to be you're just as professional as a white ballerina. You're just as a professional as a, contemporary jazz dancer. And they're putting us in the exact same arena as them, and it's giving us the opportunity to be who we were supposed to be from the very beginning.
Candy Palmer and Jeremy Dutcher and all these really top of their game Indigenous artists, not just in Canada, but internationally, have them sharing a space on one night is just the most thrilling thing for me to get to witness. People and doing things with more local artists, I think is a way to sort of pull up the whole community. So that's the exciting thing about this festival, is really an even playing field for all of these magnificent artists to be seen together.
From the Culture and the Historic Theatre, for Outlook TV, my name is Leroy Wan.
If you've ever been interested in the queer history of Vancouver, you need to check out this documentary.
It has stock footage coming from the 1800s up to modern day, so that means this footage is almost as old as Rebecca. Let's check it out.
Vancouver Pride is best known for the Vancouver Pride Parade and Festival, which have been celebrated for over 40 years. A History of Vancouver Pride and LGBTQ documentary highlights some of the moments along the way. Join us as we find out more.
The first Canadian law condemning homosexuality came into force in 1841.
Well, it starts back in the 1800s, back when it was illegal to be gay and you were put to death. That didn't last very long in Canada, but and then you were jailed up until Ted North stood on the steps of the courthouse in a dress. That's what started a lot of the movement. There was a lot of stuff going on before that, but that was kind of one of the key points of what happened. Then there was also Rupert Everett, who was the last person to be jailed for being gay in the Northwest Territories. We actually looked at that. We talk about that in the documentary. So we went through the timeline, and then of course we obviously went through as it had progressed all the way up to current today.
There's still an awful lot to do. Even 50 years later, there's a lot.
So some of the big milestones that hit for Vancouver Pride was Justin Trudeau being one of the first, sitting prime minister to march in the parade. That's pretty incredible. Even just to see, people of color joining the parade. The first South Asian float joining, and people finding their voices. Those are big things that have happened.
I worked at Rogers in community television. Basically, I went to my boss and said, well, this parade needs to be covered. So she agreed, and we ended up covering the parade with a 4-camera mobile, and we did it for 4 years. And then over the years, things, they stopped covering it, Shaw Swap Systems, and Shaw did it for 1 year, and then they stopped covering it. When they stopped covering it, I started covering it with 2 cameras myself. So I've been covering the parade since '96, so I had all this footage of the parade. I put together a thing called 30 Years of Pride, stuck it up on YouTube, and it was just basically music to all the different years, like visuals from the different years of the Pride. Then this year, when everything was virtual, we talked to the Pride Society about the idea of doing something a little more extensive, and that's when we started looking at actually creating an official documentary with all the various elements of the documentary, like interviews and going back and doing a timeline.
And then in 1991, I decided I would attend because I came out in that year. Watching the parade, I saw a sea of whiteness, a sea of maleness, and I felt unrepresented. To be queer, to me, to be LGBTQ, meant to be white, because that's the only image of queerness we ever saw. Marching in it was my way of interrupting the parade more than being included.
One of the things we struggled with was the fact that when Pride started, it was a very white male kind of thing happening. And so that's where a lot of our roots are. And even actually at the time when the parade was happening, there was already a lesbian march prior to that. So then it was, like I said, a very white thing. So as we progressed, one of the things I found out in doing the documentary, that there was a lot of stuff of people of color happening back then. Like Fatima in 1990, she organized, she got involved with a float for people of color and the First Nations. So that's all in the documentary. You actually can see a lot of those elements coming into play. Same with Alex out in that is involved with Cher.
It's 2020. Pride is evolving. We're all still listening, and the future is an unwritten book.
It's a snapshot of Pride, and it would take a huge documentary. But the other side of it is, aside from a snapshot, it's an ongoing process. And so I think in future years we might be able to add on to it or create a second version of it so we can add on to what's happening in Pride and the direction Pride's happening in Vancouver and the direction the LGBT community is going, because it is still evolving.
If you haven't seen the doc, there's a couple spots you can go. Out TV Go that's Out TV's streaming service. They have it up on there, and then I believe Pride has now officially launched it on their YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it there.
For Outlook TV, this is Angus Pratt in historic Davie Village in Vancouver.
We're going to have to take a little break now.
Fly in the studio, and it's driving me nuts.
Ooh, let it land on you, then you can be like internet famous too. Ooh.
While in Kelowna, the Outlook TV crew's accommodations were provided by the Canada Kelowna Hotel and Conference Centre. Ask for the Kelowna Pride Society's special rate, and Canada will help donate back to Kelowna Pride.
Welcome back. You're watching Outlook TV.
Up next, we're going to prance on over to Kelowna, British Columbia, and talk about the Etcetera organization, which helps one of the most minority groups you can think of, queer youth.
One of the things that we have in common as human beings is the fact that we were all kids once. And as queer people, it stands to reason that we were all queer kids once. I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia, talking to the folks at the Etcetera Youth Group, which is a fantastic youth group for queer youth between the ages of 11 and 18.
For me, a lot of the resources just were like they weren't there or they weren't accessible because they were just hard to get to. So really until I graduated, like there wasn't any support around it at all. There was one youth group that was going on once a week in my high school that we were attending, but other than that, like they didn't even have contact to other resources. It was just two counselors in Salmon Arm who were like noticing these unsupported youth.
Etcetera has been running, I think, for probably between 4 to 6 years now, and it started as a community initiative of the Kelowna Pride Society and in partnership with the Living Positive Resource Centre. It is now run by the Bridge Youth and Family Services in partnership with Kelowna Pride Society, Living Positive Resource Centre. We've had Boys and Girls Clubs of the Okanagan as partners, and a number of other supporters and partners along the way, some wonderful funders as well.
Got to attend Pride with Etcetera. We in Kelowna here, we had our own booth. The youth designed. We made a few designs with the youth that we were able to put on like water bottles and T-shirts and things like that we were able to give away at Pride to kind of promote Etcetera.
The youth who attend Etcetera are 11 to 18 years old. And so from fairly young tweens and teens right up until the end of high school and sometimes the beginning of post-secondary. And then we also provide some support to family members of those youth. Right now, one of our biggest challenges is having adequate space during COVID-19 so that our youth can drop in. As many youth who want to attend on an evening can drop in and have safe space and be socially distanced and comfortable. So that is one thing, especially as the weather is about to get colder. We are really seeking appropriate longer-term space if we can make that happen. It needs to be private space. It needs to feel safe and appropriate for young people and a place that they can have fun and really be themselves. If someone wanted to get involved with Etcetera, I would say they could contact the Bridge Youth and Family Services. So Etcetera does have a page on our website. We have our contact information there, and they could just reach out to our office. People can also go to Etcetera has a Facebook page, and we have an Instagram account. And so there's lots of information there as well about the group.
Take your time, like figuring out who you are and what it is that you need. There is no one way to be trans. Is like one of the biggest parts. It's like I feel like a lot of people have like this expectation in themselves, even when they're transitioning, that they're like, well, if I'm a trans man, I have to be hyper masculine and I have to be all of this. And trans women are held to the same standard. And it's like so much of it. I think it's just like get to know yourself, learn to love yourself.
From the Etcetera Youth Group in Kelowna, British Columbia, I'm Chris Johnson for Outlook TV.
Let's check in with Little Sisters and see how they're doing during the COVID.
Well, if they're anything like me, they're doing really poorly.
Well, I hear they don't sell just books.
They sell all sorts of sex toys, so when you're bored and you're at home, you have fun.
Little Sisters Book and Art Emporium have been a cornerstone of Vancouver's LGBTQ+ community for decades. Like all businesses, they've been challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic, and today we're going to speak to them about it. Please join us.
Well, Little Sisters has been in existence since 1983. This is the second location where we moved in 1995. So it's been around for like 36 years, and it's been a very firm hold in the gay and lesbian community for that length of time. I mean, it's definitely branched from just being solely a bookstore to clothing, novelties, and adult novelties as well, just over the years. So it's still a going concern and hoped for many years to come.
How have you handled the COVID pandemic?
When it first started, definitely it had a major effect because everything was shut down. We stayed open sort of as an essential service and had no problems with that. We just limited the amount of people that could come into the store. But after March and April, then things started bouncing back in May, June, and really have continued since.
Has customer behavior and or buying habits changed during this time?
Lubricants are a big thing for us. And if anything, that's probably an upsurge in that for sure. But there's been a big upsurge in underwear too, so.
Little Sisters was well known for being a venue for writers' readings in store. Are you doing any readings currently?
It's definitely affected that. We have no readings in the store whatsoever, and we're actually holding our first virtual reading tomorrow night. We took a big hit in Pride this year, because Pride for us is like Christmas, and definitely Pride was all virtual, but definitely we took a big hit on that for sure. Online across Canada, I'm told from other sources that they're doing very well with it. For us, it has improved somewhat, but not as well as I thought it would do for us. But a lot of people want to come in and get the product right now. But also some people are reluctant to sign in, wear masks, and now it's mandatory for us to wear a mask and sign in. So if anything should happen, that we have a contact tracing.
Do you have any products for sale that are specific to the pandemic?
They're our main thing, rubber gloves. Those are sort of the main things that we sell. We've sold a lot of masks. People are always asking, where can we get rainbow masks? And we have quite a few of those. So.
For Outlook TV, this is Angus Prott at Little Sisters Book and Art Emporium in Vancouver.
And now it's time for part 2 of Gays in the Garden.
Ooh, I hope you have a cup of tea for the occasion because we get to go see a wig tree.
A wig tree? Like wig?
There's no one better than the gays to tiptoe through the tulips. Let's see what they did out there.
Hey viewers, back in the summer when we were all supposed to be isolating, I did a 2-part story on gays in their gardens. This is part 2.
My garden is a shade garden. Even though it faces south, it's surrounded by big trees, mature trees that create shade all the time. And I've got about 300 pots and planters. The thing I love most about my garden is that it makes me happy. Opened up a boutique gardening store called The Natural Gardener up on West 10th Avenue in Point Grey. I specialized in native plants as well as rare and unusual, and I got quite a name for that. So probably the gayest thing in my garden is me.
I chose my home specifically because of this private rooftop deck. My very favorite is my wig tree. And this is wig season. You can see them in there. And I'll pick one fresh. When you put on the wig, it's a magic wig tree. And it makes your whole personality become the new person. Oh yeah. What's gay about my garden? David Holtzman is in my garden. This is a Thai spirit house, and David loved Thailand. And this is the magic, the actual magic of having a wig tree in your garden.
Now, the essence of my garden is overgrown, messy, jungle-like. It's loaded with tall bamboo and grapevines and morning glory, and it's a battle to keep it all under control. But at the end of the day, it's totally secluded. The other thing that's really nice about my little garden is it's sentimental. There's many things in here that remind me of my childhood, particularly this lovely structure behind me, my greenhouse. And it's all built out of windows from our family home. What inspires me about gardening? Everything. I would say it's the life force that's in everything, how fast it grows from a seed to a tree, the beautiful flowers, taking care of it, being the steward of my own little jungle. Of course, I love making things look pretty. Definitely, I love sharing it with my friends. We've had some marvelous garden parties. So, what's the gayest thing about my garden? Well, I didn't just get the windows for the greenhouse. I got the door to my mother's shoe closet. Ha! Need I say more? This is John Crossan with Outlook TV, getting down and dirty with some avid gardeners.
We're going to have to take another little break now.
And I'm going to awkwardly pose on this table while we wait.
Welcome back. You're watching Outlook TV.
Our very own Angus interviews Gary Beals of Canadian Idol fame, who just released his new album, Bleed My Truth. It sounds deep and it deals with queer content, I hear.
Excellent.
Probably why we're covering it.
Canadian R&B artist Gary Beals has released a new album after being out of the spotlight for more than a decade. Let's go find out what Bleed My Truth is all about.
You know, I guess I fell in love with music through church, growing up in the church, singing in the choir, and then also my parents, they played a lot of the soul classic artists. A new fantastic point of view. 2003, I became the first runner-up on the first season of Canadian Idol, and what an experience that was for me. It was a whirlwind because it was the first season. Didn't really know what to expect. It took off my career in a way that I went from singing locally to singing nationally. Fast forward to, gosh, what are we, 2020? And here I am, Bleeding My Truth, which is the name of my album. I stand authentically in my truth, embracing everything about me, you know, embracing my sexuality, but also understanding that it's not the totality of who I am, but a portion of who I am, but it's important that I do embrace that part of me. I expose who I really am. I would say Me for Me kind of touches on sexuality for me, and in Good Company, I would say touch on sexuality in terms of identity. Love, oh my goodness, there's self-love, which is Me for Me. There's that kind of platonic love. Blood Red Roses, my second single, touches on love. Good Love touches on love. All forms of love, platonic and romantic as well. And then, of course, Good Company touches on that romantic love as well. Second single, Blood Red Roses, I released the original back in August, and then the remix was just released. And basically the song itself, it was inspired by my trip to South Africa because I was at a Latin club where there were Black, white, Chinese, there was young, there was old, there was gay, there was straight. So it was the beauty of love and being in a place where I was able to be myself as a gay man and to be myself as a Black man and just feel the love from everybody. Being in South Africa and just seeing the Blackness, the people there, the beauty of Black people, you know, whether they didn't have much or not, it was just the beautiful interactions that you could see from the people there. And so the remix is an ode to Africa, just an ode to our Blackness and just embracing that part of ourselves. So Bleed My Truth, my third album that I'm so excited about, will be released on October the 23rd, 2 days before my birthday. So it's an early birthday gift that I'm giving to myself.
For Outlook TV, this is Angus Pratt in Vancouver.
Ms. Gay Vancouver 40, our very own sister Fancy Pants, stepped down recently.
To see the crown passed on at the Rhinestone Phoenix virtual pageant was a sight to behold. Just go to the clip.
Oh, are you verklempt?
A little.
Hey Outlook TV, it's me, it's Ollie, and the time has already come for the Rhinestone Phoenix Charity Foundation to elect their new Mr. and Miss Gay Vancouver. This year, because of what's happening in the world, both the candidate show and the virtual pageant are happening online. I spoke with Miss Gay Vancouver 40, Sister Fancy Pants, about our reign and about the two events called Art Pop.
The Rhinestone Phoenix Pageant is that one time of the year where we say a thank you to the title holder who's stepping down, and we welcome potential new title holders. And the pageant itself has the usual elements that you would see at a coronation. So we have court walks where other societies and businesses will make a show and say that they're there to support the organization. We have special performances where we have people who have helped the organization out during the year do special performances and give them a bit of a highlight. And then we have the candidates performing to make their claim to be the next title holders. And we have anniversary performances where past title holders, usually in increments of 5 years, so 1 year, 5 year, 10, 15, all the way to as far to the beginning as possible. After I got the title, I was able to create my own events, attend other events to help fundraise. I chose Options for Sexual Health to fundraise for. I don't know how community does it, but they still found a way to give and was able to fundraise over $1,000 during this past 6 months, bringing my total to over $3,500 for the year. This year's pageant is definitely different because it's virtual. So the big challenge was how to gauge community as well as also to get votes. The title holders are not named to these positions, they're actually elected by the community. So we separated the pageant into 2 shows. We had a candidates show the week before where we presented a show based just on the candidates and why they're running.
In order to be able to support the Pride community with different charities, this opportunity is everything. It's the reason we do stuff like this, I think, you know? That's why I'm running, personally.
First and foremost, we want to make sure that we support our community in every way we can. We'd like to be able to raise funds for the Sage Community Food Bank and be able to help them help people, especially in these dire times of need.
And after the show, people had an opportunity to come by and do an in-person vote. Then the week after, we would have our actual pageant, then also the crowning.
At this time, it's with honor that we, the Senate of Mr., Miss, and Miss Gay Vancouver, call you open to the new Mr. Gay Vancouver Justin Abbott and Miss Gay Vancouver Ginger Snap.
Thank you so much, Sister Fancy Pants, for your amazing work this year, and best of luck to candidates Ginger Snap and Justin Abbott. For Outlook TV, this is Ollie in Vancouver.
Thank you so much for joining us. That is all the time we have for this episode of Outlook TV, but we'll be back before you can blink.
I never blink because I have so much Botox. But you know what you can do with your wide-eye open eyes? Go to the internet and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Friendster. What are we on?
Friendster, right?
Super old, like us. But you can also shoot us an email at volunteer@Outlook.tv in order to volunteer with us.
Because we're having so much fun, even through a pandemic.
Yes, we're keeping it lively, just like ourselves.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Rebecca Wyman.
And I'm Robert Mackay.
Stay safe, Canada.